I suppose I'm allowed to mention names. I cannot stand Alex Ferguson. I had a paper sent to me, and it showed my grandson, and Alex Ferguson says, "If I lose, it'll be because of David Elleray." I thought, how could anybody be so cold?
The normal referee, nobody knows where he lives. They know where he lives. And, of course, that brings its own dangers.
I live at the moment with Home Office alarms in my house because of death threats made to me after matches last season, which were taken so seriously by the police that I can now press a button and have every police car within 10 miles come to my house instantly. That is the pressure we as referees live under, because that is how important the great game of football has become. Jeff, hi, David Elleray. No, they've given me an extension on my time as a housemaster and made me director of boarding, so I'm in charge of all the other boarding houses as well. Well, I'm not permitted to talk to you unless the Premier League give permission. And I've had a letter to that effect this week reminding me that
David Elleray is the spokesperson for Premiership referees, but ironically, he's not allowed to speak to reporters. The world of refereeing is a closed and secretive place. The recent headlines about anarchy on the pitch have not pleased the football authorities.
I think there are problems because everybody in the game is under huge pressure. There's a huge amount at stake in terms of money, and that pressure causes people to snap on occasions. And there is a need for strong discipline.
Roy Keane has the fuse here, a real explosion of emotion. It's now down purely to the referee's interpretation of what he saw.
Elleray at 45 is the best-known referee in England.
He's off. Keane is sent off.
For the last 8 years, he's refereed glamorous and decisive club matches in Britain and Europe. Refereeing has taken him to international matches around the world.
Here we go! Well, another red card. Dunga can't believe it.
And then there's his day job in one of England's top public schools.
Carlton, would you like to go and put on the arrows for insolation? What happens to insulation without looking at your notes? I came to Harrow in 1977 as a geography master. Although I'd been to a state school myself, I was attracted to the public school world, and it's just emerged to be the most fantastic place to work, and I've over a career of over 20 years. Evening, come on. Yeah. I've got evidence now. Light energy, we decided, didn't we?
Elleray is also a housemaster at Harrow, where he's in charge of a house of 60 boys. Recently, he was made director of boarding, responsible for the school's 790 boarders.
Where's your hat?
So it's at Maxwell's.
I'll get it otherwise next time. I think housemastering is probably the best job in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And I've been fortunate that Harrow has allowed me to referee. And that's helped me psychologically, because when I've hit a fallow period in refereeing, it's often been a period when I've gained promotion at Harrow. When I've hit a sort of fallow period at Harrow, it's been a period when I gained promotion in refereeing. So I've had two careers dovetailing in, side by side, very similar and very different.
Elleray's desire to pursue two careers makes him a figure of the past. The hugely commercial world that is football wants full-time professional referees dedicated to the game. Elleray knows he's one of the last of the amateur referees.
Chapel. Do you think it's worth having a sort of chapel attendance book? Because there's a whole load of people who don't go to chapel legitimately anyway. Can you do that? At least I can check and see who are the frequent missers. Mr. Bell, do join me in my study. If, when you're talking to me now, I decided that I would sit like that, you would regard that as rude?
Yes, sir.
So why do you do it when the chaplain's preaching?
That's chaplain.
There's a sort of superficial feeling that referees are like school teachers, you know, the worst school teachers who just tell people off and are a bit power crazy.
Please, can I get some money out?
Yeah. How much?
£2, please.
I mean, occasionally I get a bit of stick about my accent, and I'm sort of teased in refereeing circles being known as the Lord Elleray, the aristocratic referee or whatever.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Could you put that on the board to Charlie Orman Brown?
Okay, sir.
Please, thank you. And shoes?
Yes, I'm buying some polish today.
What a good idea. I can remember a senior referee when I was probably a Football League linesman saying that I'd never get to the top of the referee because I had too posh a voice. I needed to have a rough accent and swear at players because that's what the players were like. In the end, on the field, it's how you referee, not how you speak. I always take 2 sets every kit, just in case something rips or breaks, but also in case we get one of those horrendous downpours at half-time. Exactly the same order, exactly the same way, partly routine, and I think routine gives you security, and it also means that when you're a busy person, if you're used to doing everything in the same order, you're far less likely to forget something. I was once on the bus from the long-term car park at Heathrow to the plane when I realised I hadn't packed any shorts, which was a slightly delicate moment in my international career.
It's 4 in the afternoon. David Elleray has been teaching all day. Now his football life takes over. It's January and the FA Cup, the road to Wembley. For the next 5 months, Elleray's crowded refereeing diary will have the added pressure of cup ties. Tonight's game takes place in London, a rush hour away from the school boarding house in Harrow.
You drive to the game on your own. You have your assistants, but you're basically on your own during the game. And you drive home on your own afterwards. You write your reports on your own. You are not part of a team. You're basically a solitary person.
Tonight's tie is between Chelsea and Nottingham Forest. Chelsea fans have long and bitter memories of Elleray.
I refereed them in the FA Cup final in 1994, and the first goal was a penalty to Manchester United, which was not disputed.
Owen! Penalty! Not a difficult decision for David Elleray.
The second goal was also a penalty, which was more debated.
Chelskis. David Elleray. Frank Sinclair, he's given another one. A second penalty.
I don't think that's a penalty at all. It's very, very harsh indeed.
Cantona scored 2-0 and it ended up 4-0, and therefore there were elements who said I stopped Chelsea winning the FA Cup. But last time I refereed at Stamford Bridge last season, I was walking in the ground and I heard one spectator turn to another and say, "Look who's refereeing tonight, it's Satan." Hi, referee.
Yeah, straight down there.
Okay, thank you. 2 whistles in case one of them stops working. 2 watches in case one of them stops working. 2 pencils in case the lead breaks on one of them. 3 cards. A yellow card for back pocket for cautions, red and yellow card, shirt pocket for sending off. They each have a flag which has a buzzer on it in the handle, and I wear strapped to my arm this receiver, and when that's pressed, that makes a noise and it vibrates, so it gets your attention. And that's what we really want in terms of technology. It's a way of coming out and beginning to get a sort of a feel of the atmosphere, the pitch, the geography of the place. and sometimes you just pick up little potential hiccups. Is the groundsman around? Or can we grab him?
Yeah.
Could he come and see me with a tape measure?
Is that for grass length?
Yeah. It might just be that I've got small paces, but I think your marks on the corner flags.
Get a tape measure.
Okay, sorry to give you extra work. Thanks. So what they'd done, they'd measured from the arc, they'd measured 10 metres rather than 10 yards. So they just used the wrong measurements. Thank you. Would you like a cup of tea?
I love a cup of tea.
Mr. Sharp's about to do the tea.
Does he know that?
No, he does now. You'll be pleased to know we've had the pitch remarked.
Why? What was the problem?
The mark from the arc of the corner was 10 metres, not 10 yards from the arc.
Was it really?
On all 4 corners, so all 8 marks were wrong.
You did rather well to spot that, didn't you?
Yes, I did rather well to spot it, because I...
For the rounds of the FA Cup, and this is quite common at senior football level, an assessor is appointed, the eye in the stand, if you like, marking the referee on a number of headings. And the referees get marked on a scale up to 10, and they're marked on subjects like their application of the law, their fitness, their positioning, the way they cooperate with their assistants, and most important of all, how they control the game. It's still very hard to get a faultless mark in 90 minutes when a chap's making something like 100 decisions.
Periods in each half where I just had to up it for 5 minutes just to
you say that. I've got
squeeze it down.
Well, yes. Yes.
It just got a bit lively and gave a few more free kicks. You just felt it needed a bit of a reminder that I was about.
Absolutely, yes. Reckless tackle, frankly, wasn't it?
Poirier is obviously hurt. It sort of ripped a hole in his socks. He was a little bit wound up for 3 or 4 minutes afterwards. He committed 2 rash challenges, but didn't actually make contact with anybody. I then had to keep a careful eye on Poirier to see that he didn't actually go to seeking revenge. I think if it had been a hostile, antagonistic game, then I think one might have taken sterner action. One of the challenges in refereeing, the man management side of refereeing, is spotting how to deal with each player, who is the troublemaker, who you can perhaps get on your side to help you control other players, something like Dennis Wise. And I think if you chat to, you've got more chance of influencing him. And he can have a go back at you, you can have a go back at him. But if you just stand off him, then he can explode. There was one occasion in the first half where he thought one of his players had been fouled, I didn't give it, and he immediately fouled somebody. Just to be kind of, well, I was frustrated because you didn't give us the free kick, and I was saying, well, there's no point allowing your frustration over a mistake I might have made to end up with you getting a yellow card and getting yourself into trouble. Okay. You had the press down at half-time just checking that if Mr. Zola hadn't touched it, would we have allowed the goal?
Well, I was going to ask you that.
Just had kicked it in. As we said, if he'd not touched it, we'd have allowed the goal.
He's on the goal line, it's going in, I'll just help it in. Yeah. And then as he's done it and he's celebrating, of course Petrescu's going, you shouldn't have touched that because you've played the ball offside. And I see David look over me straight away, rather than all the players celebrate, we've cut it dead straight away.
Things have been slightly lively between Laborde and I think it's Rogers, and he sort of has a kick at the ball at him, and they both push each other. Perhaps I should have blown for it earlier. Chris Williams did quite well to get rid of Laborde. It might have escalated, in which case I might have had to have taken sterner action.
Yes, I didn't think it was necessary.
But I didn't on that. I didn't think there were any blows thrown or anything. It was sort of arms up, but it was pushing and shoving rather than anything. My view of that was, well, let's talk it. I called them both over, and Dennis Wise came up and said, like colourful language, well, just send the fuckers off. Burst out laughing.
Did you feel it needed any more than that?
No.
No,
I think if it's one of those that if there'd been hostility between the players generally, we might have done.
I would have said that was what some people would describe as handbags at 10 paces, and I think David's a pretty good judge of when you need to come in very strongly or when you can quieten it down quite quickly, and that's what I think he did. We normally decide on our mark when we write the report and summarise it all, and clearly he had a good game, and the mark, I guess, will certainly be one that he'll be pleased with.
I was quite sort of tired and a bit irritable on the Wednesday morning and early afternoon of the game. And I went off to Chelsea, refereed a football match, was totally absorbed in football for an hour and a half. And my mood had changed. Say, listen, when I talk to them during the game, you can give them the benefit of the doubt. If they're giving you earache all the time, then you get rid of them.
Appreciate it.
People find it odd that I live a life which has two highly pressurised jobs, but one is an escape from the other. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not convinced about the need for full-time referees.
But outside, the real world is waiting. Chelsea fans have not forgotten or forgiven 1994.
It's a wanker! It's a wanker! No! It's a wanker! You're fucking awesome!
And just slightly closer to me if you can, very slightly.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
David, I was going to ask you, what about professional referees would you be for it against it?
Against it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I agree with you in football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll just be under too much pressure.
Cricket's too...
And everyone will think that because they're being paid 100,000 a year, they're going to stop making mistakes.
No.
The expectation's ridiculous.
Yes. Let's meet our final guest, football referee David Elleray. The Premiership's leading referee, David is the Harrow schoolmaster who's taken charge of all the big occasions.
Successful referees are always going to be seen to have big egos.
So, David, referees probably have the toughest job in football, and here's some good examples from the Men in Black.
You have to, as a referee, believe in yourself, because you subject yourself to huge amounts of pressure. When I went to Brazil to do a final, I was the only non-Brazilian in a stadium of 80,000 people. All the players were Brazilian, the assistants were Brazilian. I was an Englishman on his own. Now you have to have something of an ego in terms of a belief in yourself to have to go and do that and cope with that.
Really a natural footballer. Oh, what ball control.
It's people from Barnsley that can't stand up, you see.
I'm a local government officer from Barnsley. He's my best friend in football. We're both from opposite ends of the spectrum, really. I mean, I've got quite a broad Yorkshire accent, and he's got a rather posh Harrow accent, which sort of, you know, looks as though that we are probably from the opposite ends of the table, but we're not, actually. I mean, we're both steeped in football refereeing.
Steve Lodge, a Premiership referee from Barnsley, is Elleray's best friend in the world of refereeing. Tonight they're at Leicester City's ground. As a favour, Elleray has agreed to arrange referees for tonight's Public Schools Cup final. Elleray gets the line.
Saturday night, Sunday morning, referees that you're friendly with will phone up. Perhaps you want to know, did you see on Match of the Day? Or others say, I got the press on my back, can you help? And sometimes you just need people to reassure you that what you did was right, or just to know that people are there, because it is very lonely.
He came to watch me referee Leeds versus Chelsea, and he said to me after the game, he says, that's the worst I've ever seen you referee. He said, you didn't seem to be at the races, you weren't picking up the challenges, and he said, you really looked switched off. And, you know, I appreciated that kind of, you know, that kind of sort of kick up the backside. If I go to watch David, and, you know, I see something where I think he's doing wrong, I won't have, you know, I won't have a moment's hesitation in sort of letting him know. So I think, you know, we are a special breed of people, really.
Nobody expects Alan Shearer to score with every shot, or to win every tackle, or to get every pass right. They all expect me to get every decision right. And that, in a way, is a major philosophical problem in the game. And that's why we talk about technology, that's why we talk about full-time referees, because there seems to be this holy grail of perfect decision-making.
You've mentioned about having cameras in the goal mouth. Is that to determine whether the ball's crossed the line in such a decision?
I don't know if there are any Chesterfield supporters in the room. Good. The headmaster earlier this evening said to me, "Do you know anything about that game where that idiot referee didn't allow the third Chesterfield goal against Middlesbrough?" And I said, "Yes, I was the idiot referee."
And it comes for Howard. Can they get another one? Off the other side of the bar. Linesman's flagging. Linesman has got the flag up. He's given the goal. Linesman's given a goal. What is the referee giving? No, does this cross the line? The linesman said it did, but it's not been given. Well, that's a big decision.
So I think that the one area where referees feel that technology could help would be goal line decisions to decide did the ball cross the line or not. And of course the advantage of that decision is it is a matter of fact. Like run-outs or stumpings in cricket, it either crossed the line or it didn't. Most of my decisions tomorrow won't be matters of fact, they'll be matters of opinion. Was that a foul or not? Was that foul bad enough for a yellow card? Was it so bad it was a red card? No matter how many TV cameras you bring in, you can't change that because in the end somebody has to make a value judgment. Ah, referee, can I get in this way? Yeah. Thanks. I thought it was this way. Thanks.
It's less than 12 hours since his speech in the Midlands. Elleray has driven 100 miles back to London in the early hours to ensure he arrives, as usual, 3 hours before kick-off for today's fifth round FA Cup tie.
Security you will have off the pitch at half-time and at the end.
Right.
If you feel threatened at all, then we will give you security back to your car as well after the game. One last thing, you come in between a slightly contentious area in that you've got away fans on that terrace, home fans on here.
Okay.
Security will be with you. They'll catch the larger objects if they missile them down.
Thank you very much. Goalkeeper's gin.
Another London tie, Fulham against Tranmere. Two clubs from the Nationwide League who've already knocked out Premiership teams and are ambitious to reach the quarter-finals.
Kelvin's with us today.
The advice I give referees is to say that if the first yellow card of the game is one that no fair-minded person can disagree with, then that's your benchmark. You set the right standard. If it's one where people say, oh, we've got one of those nitpicky referees that's going to caution for everything, then you have a problem. You'll either have 11 cautions or you'll be inconsistent if you don't have the 11 cautions. That scenario.
I want you to establish eye-to-eye contact with me before you give any directional decision. Goal kick, corner kick, free kick or throw-in. Second thing is, all the way through the game, the way you're running the line should reflect the way the game's being refereed. So if I'm fighting over blades of grass, I want you fighting. If I'm not fighting over blades of grass, I'm letting them put the ball down and go. I want you to have the same tolerance level. I'm not looking to overrule you in your half unless you've gone so horribly wrong. It would look silly if I supported you. But a lot of the time I'll be giving you a nudge. And equally, you know, if you as the ball goes off, you see me and you give a little nudge. First one was 24 of Tranmere, Mr. Babb. Then number 15 of Tranmere.
Yep.
If you don't penalise them early on, there's a danger players think you're not actually spotting the fouls. So in the same way they always talk about, particularly in the good old days, the defender putting in a strong tackle on his opposing number early on just to let him know he's there. You do that a little bit as a referee, you just let players know you're there. And then a double caution, number 9 of Tranmere, late foul tackle. And immediately after that, unsporting behaviour from number 11.
certainly a full-blooded cup tie.
Yes.
I think it was a penalty. Stan was the last man. He should have been sent off under the rules. He didn't even get booked.
I have a masochistic streak in me which listens to 606 on Saturday evening to see what their abuse they're hurling on referees.
Would Roy Keane and these sort of people have a lot more respect if the referees were ex-professionals?
I think bashing referees is part of football. It's not part of rugby, it's not part of cricket, but I think it's part of the culture of football. I enjoyed it more than the Chelsea game because there was more for me to do. Lots of penalty area excitement. The Fulham crowd probably appealed for half a dozen penalties. The Fulham players appealed for almost none. 2 of the yellow cards I would like to see again because they were what we sometimes rightly or wrongly call orange cards. They were more serious than a simple yellow card. In my judgment, from where I was at the time, not bad enough to be a red card, but sort of halfway between. I think on both those, certainly on the Thompson one, I blew the whistle and called the player to me. I was deciding whether to go to the back pocket where I keep my yellow card or to the top pocket here where I went for my red card. And to some extent I was looking to see the extent to which the player he'd fouled had been injured. And I think if the player had suffered a bad injury, then that might have swayed me to sterner action. Sometimes you judge how the other players are reacting. If the other players aren't over-steamed up about it, and you're not sure whether it's red or yellow and nobody else is creating a fuss, then you tend to stay with the yellow and give them the benefit of the doubt because everyone else has.
I thought he did very well, as he usually does. Just cries of some of the crowd, offspring being abused. He's done superbly well. There are something like 24,000 referees in this country, and anybody that gets anywhere near the top has done superbly well. When he was a lad of about 12, he was going along to the recreation ground in the pouring rain, asking to run the line for these local pub teams. You know, terrible, terrible games, all sort of full of drunks and layabouts and so on. He used to go up there on a Saturday twice a day, in the morning and in the afternoon. So there we are. Let's drive.
Well, I think as a youngster, if you're in the local newspaper with your photograph, then that, as a 13-year-old, has an attraction. They like to be in the news and be noticed and not just be somebody ordinary. Anything I could find about referees, I'd stick in. I was just obsessed. So there are sort of little corners here where there's just a sort of in the background of a photo of a ref running around in that game, and because I knew who it was cut out and it was put in his file. So I was just really, I suppose, obsessed with refereeing and referees. So it's quite good when everyone says that English football and league football is going to the dogs. This was 1968, 1969, referee guarded by police after Brentford row. Referee Norman Burnshaw was given police escort to his dressing room. Ref threatens to call off Arsenal game. There's even one here. Payer, says league referee, is a call by managers for professional referees as an urgently needed move to improve the standards of match control. That was 1970. I was somebody who was always ambitious, but there was an opportunity to perhaps do what everybody dreams of doing when they're interested in football, which is to play for England, and I knew I would never play for England, but perhaps I might referee for England.
Once he started to do this, climb through the leagues, I thought, well, I think he'd probably make the top. The only thing which, and I told him, which I thought mitigated against him getting to the top, was inverse snobbery. The Harrow beak. Who's he to sort of tell people, you know, that sort of attitude. I thought that attitude might impede him.
but it didn't, apparently.
Somebody was looking down on me and decided when I became a housemaster, I'd become a housemaster of the house, which produced the man who really was the founder of modern-day football.
Right, house to kick off.
And on Founders Day, each house plays an old boys 11. And you see football as it really began.
The public schools of England played their football to different sets of rules until one J.F. Alcock, in what's now Elleray's House Drury's, helped to unify them.
Oh, God.
Elleray enjoys refereeing Harrow football and pointing out the unlikely origins of rules taken for granted today.
The odds given.
What you do see is the origin of 10 yards in soccer and rugby, which is where the player catches the ball, shouts yards. The referee puts his stick on the ground where the player caught the ball, and the player goes back with the ball, runs up to the stick and takes 3 of the biggest paces he can. And where he lands on his third pace, or third running yard as it's called, that's where the defensive wall is formed, and that is approximately 10 yards.
Base kick. Tea in the dining hall afterwards. Good, well done everyone. Play? Yep. You couldn't leave without being covered in Harrow mud. It's very good for the skin.
Like all Premiership referees, Elleray is also appointed to matches in the lower divisions. Today he's driven to Bristol for the Division 2 match between Bristol Rovers and Preston. It's a promotion decider for the clubs. It'll be tense, and having a Premier referee in charge doesn't automatically please the fans.
I hit the roof when I heard it. People who have authority in private life make very poor referees.
You can upset a club 10 years ago, and the players and the manager change, and you go back after 8-10 years. And the fans still remember. And I went to, a couple of seasons ago, to Stockport to referee them against Middlesbrough in the semi-final of the League Cup, and couldn't understand why I was getting so much abuse from the Stockport fans. Genuinely couldn't work it out. One of the club officials reminded me afterwards that in 1994 I refereed them in a playoff final at Wembley and sent 2 of their players off and they'd lost, and they'd never forgiven me for that. I'd completely forgotten about that.
What's it like underneath it? Is it grass or mud or?
It's a bit of mud now.
A bit of mud, is it?
Not too bad.
Oh, right, okay.
All right.
Yeah. Good.
I think he'll finish with 8 men apart, and I think he will do so for nicotine, and that's my opinion.
At its best, refereeing is like being the conductor of an orchestra. You determine the pace, the ebb and the flow, who comes in, who goes out, and what happens. But in the end, it's the players who get the credit, not the conductor. And in the same way, in a football match, it's the players that should get the credit, not the referee. Referees like praise, they just don't tend to get it.
Refereed it very well, but then again it was an easy game to referee.
I snapped back at one. He said, "Can't we talk to you?" I said, "Yeah, but I'm allowed to talk to you back." Oh, he said. So the idea of you and me talking is not that you shout at me and I just listen. I shout back. Well, I mean, I had one last week at Bradford where one of the Bradford players, I gave a couple of decisions against him. He said, "Come on, lads, we're playing against 12 men." I said, "I'll have you for that." About 2 minutes, he said, "I'm terribly sorry." He said, "That's the worst thing I've said to a referee. That's appalling. I'm really sorry." And he spent the next 5 minutes apologising. I said, "It's all right, okay, I've got the message. You didn't mean it." Because you are a Premier League referee doing a Football League game, there's a certain expectation from everybody that your performance level will be above the norm anyway. And then you've got to say, well, I'm not the superstar here. The players are, and I've not got to be bigger than the game. They say the best referee is the referee you don't see. And that was probably true today.
But he behaved himself today. When he has a bad game, it's a really bad game. I still think he's a atrocious referee.
thing I've suffered with all my life is blisters. The battered feet of 30 plus years refereeing, really. I feel fine. But you never know until you get on the wretched treadmill. At my age, my body's beginning to protest a bit.
Feeling relaxed, David?
And a couple of years ago, I had trouble with my knees, and they used to swell up after games. I couldn't walk properly for a day or two. But I still feel as if I'm 30. I'm still the same physique I was when I was at university, pretty well, the same weight. So I don't feel old.
That's good, David. Come on, we need 15 seconds more.
Keep driving now, keep driving.
The life of a referee is a knife edge of continual assessment. They sit fitness tests 4 times a season. If they fail once, they're suspended for 5 weeks. Fail twice, and they're taken off the referees list altogether.
That's it, spit it out.
Okay, I'm just get you out
Craig will
there.
just get the treadmill going again. You can.
Elleray passed.
6! 6, no way. I'll have you, please. 6, here, please.
It brings back all the memories, really. You know, putting the nets up beforehand and the grass not very well cut and the lines there but not really there.
No, the man's standing. Ref, you've got your own thing here. Yeah, I know, but that was no way. They played a 1-2, he was never offside.
Well, it's not unlike the Premiership, is it? You know, it's, people are going in for challenges. There's 1 or 2 on each side who are more mouthy than anybody else.
He ain't putting anyone off. He hasn't putting anyone off.
Like any sort of typical football, really. The only difference is the players' cars being towed away whilst the game's going on.
This is the refereeing world David Elleray had to pass through on his way to the top. Hackney Marshes is the biggest public football ground in Europe. 80 pitches side by side, full every weekend, a hard training ground for referees. The players are bad enough, but the spectators can be even worse.
You have to stay off the pitch here. You're not. Yeah, you're not playing. Yeah, I'm gonna have a word with them, but you've got. Yeah, but you stay off the pitch, please. Can we stand back off the line, please? Can we just?
The tackles aren't flying in as much as I thought they'd be, and there's not as much dissent as I thought. So it's rather better discipline than I'd anticipated. If you go back to basics, what does a football match need? It needs a game that's controlled by a referee, and if it doesn't need much control, then you don't want a referee who interferes.
"11 years ago, as an experiment, David Elleray agreed to wear a microphone to illustrate the pressure players put on a referee. It has never been repeated.
Listen, once we've given a decision, stand up. Once we've given a decision, we're not going to change it, and I'm not going to have you calling me a cheat, all right? All right? I gave...
OK, you're frustrated with the variation in what language you use, and cheat is not one of them, all right? You do not speak my language like that, otherwise you go in the book. You accept the decision and clear off, all right?
I don't believe that players are trying to get the referee to change his mind. I think there's just a reaction that they think the referee is wrong, or they're trying to convince the referee he's wrong.
Clear off!
How calculated their reaction is, I don't know.
Come here.
If you were cynical, you'd say that players pressurise referees not to get them to change that decision, but to make them wary later in the game of giving decisions which might upset.
What's your number? 7. You keep it quiet, otherwise you're going to walk.
Sometimes, intentionally or unintentionally, referees become the scapegoat. A manager under pressure, team losing matches. Does he blame himself, does he blame his players, or does he blame the referee? The referee is the easy option.
He's on. David Elleray dismisses Roy Keane in a semi-final. Replayed for the second time.
It's last year's FA Cup semi-final. Not for the first time, David Elleray took a decision that outraged Manchester United fans, and especially their manager, Alex Ferguson. On the night, United went on to win and reach the cup final. 2 weeks later, however, in a Premiership decider, Elleray sent off Dennis Irwin. He also awarded a penalty against United, who dropped behind Arsenal at the top of the table, provoking a ferocious outburst from Ferguson. Accusations were splashed across the newspapers, blaming Elleray for United's position. The Harrow schoolmaster faced the worst crisis of his refereeing life.
I think when it extends to hate mail, abusive phone calls, death threats, I think that's when it gets very serious and very distressing.
Events worsened. The United chairman, Martin Edwards, made a scathing personal attack on Elleray. Death threats came from United fans throughout the world.
I had a panic alarm installed, yes, because the threats I received were of a nature that I passed them on to the police, and they took them seriously. And I think sometimes when managers and chairmen speak out against referees, they perhaps don't realise that they do sort of unleash the hounds of hell.
French in the afternoon, so we miss me.
French?
French listening.
And I was concerned as any referee would be that the people you live with, and because I'm at a boarding school, the boys live in the same building as I do, a different part of it, but the same building, that if anything was done, they might get to court in it. You didn't get Cantona then?
60 boys live in the house. Elleray was frightened for them as well as himself. One day he received a phone call from the United chairman offering a very private apology for what was a very public attack.
It was an extremely distressing time, and the FA made it very clear that what happened then is unacceptable.
I think what people in authority and people with these responsibilities have got to understand that quite often that the public and the fans take what is being said literally, and that obviously put a lot more pressure on David.
I once said to a player, I may be useless, but I don't cheat. And that's why I think referees object more than anything else to the word cheat, because referees don't cheat. They make mistakes, and they sometimes make very wrong decisions, but they're wrong decisions which are totally honest.
It's now April, and having missed getting a cup quarter-final, Elleray has been given one of the semi-finals. It's his 10th trip to Wembley and the highlight of his season.
All right, there we are. You have a nice afternoon. Okay. Now you've got to promise you won't shout nasty things at the ref.
Meeting the Aston Villa and Bolton fans in small groups before the match is one thing, but Elleray knows the impact the fans can have when there are 80,000 of them surrounding the referee in the stadium.
Now the thing to remember this afternoon is the only difference between this match and any other match is what's going on behind your back.
What happens as a referee, of course, is you start off in the local parks and you are dealing with 3 or 4 spectators, and as you move up it's 50 or 60, then it's 100, then it's 1,000, then it's 10,000, then it's 100,000. And you have to learn to cope with the crowd, and one of the things you do as a referee is learn to block out the crowd. Millwall crowd in the old Den was a very hostile crowd, and as a linesman you always knew to wear your oldest kit because they'd spit at you and they'd throw cups of tea at you, and the language would be awful. I can remember running the line on one game at Millwall where this guy just walked up and down behind me saying, "Look at me, linesman, look at me, linesman, because I want you to know, recognise my face, because the next time you see it will be the moment you're going to die."
After incidents like that, it's not surprising that Elleray has always wanted to keep his other world of teaching and Harrow. But inside football, the pressure for referees devoted only to the game seems relentless. 18 months ago, 9 of the top referees in England were asked whether they would go full-time. 8 said they would. Elleray made it clear that he would not.
I actually said to him I was disappointed in those comments, because when those comments came out, it appeared that there were Premier League referees saying that full-time refereeing wasn't a good idea, when actually it was David's own opinion.
But I think that that is not necessarily a change because they believe that it will make refereeing better. I think for a number of them it would allow them to earn more money than they currently earn.
next season, realistically, your FIFA referees could be earning up to £50,000 from football. I think maybe within the next 2-3 years that there will be full-time referees, and therefore that will not be for David.
Back and nicked it away from him now. Free kick, and is the card coming out again here for Delaney? It is. He's off.
If I 10-15 years ago had thought the only way I could become a Premier League referee was to go full-time, I would probably have given up refereeing.
Come back, Dean Holdsworth! An absolute sitter.
And there is a view that because we are amateurs, we don't take the game seriously, and I find that rather offensive.
And James has saved it again! It's match point, Aston Villa!
We are all very professional, and I don't have to become full-time to be more dedicated to trying to referee to the best of my ability whenever I go on the field of play.
Well, it was a poor game of football for most of the game. It was scrappy. It was a sort of typical tense semi-final where everybody was afraid of making mistakes, really. And I suppose the Dean Holdsworth miss with the goalkeeper out. Nice lad, and I feel sorry for Dean Holdsworth, but you could say that the referees get pilloried if they make mistakes, but yeah, that's a big player mistake to miss like that. And it just shows that everybody in the game of football is human. They don't always get it right.
In 1998, Elleray's two worlds could not be reconciled. The World Cup, the pinnacle of a referee's career, where Elleray would have been England's representative, clashed with an opening for the headmaster's job at Harrow. Elleray stayed for the interviews. He did not get the job, but his choice was significant.
The answer to which of the two worlds I find most important was demonstrated when I made the decision not to go to the World Cup. I was always convinced that I would referee the 1998 World Cup final. But in the end, I love schoolmastering more than I love football.
Come on, Harrow!
We always talk in refereeing that if you don't enjoy it, get out.
If you use language like that again, I will simply send you off. Just grow up.
And there are occasions when you don't enjoy it, but if the overall involvement is positive, and I've been very, very lucky that it has been positive, then it's a wonderful thing to have done. And people say to me, well, why do you do it? And you say, well, did you see the Man United-Arsenal Cup semi-final last season? And I said, well, yes, I did. I was the referee of it, and I was there in the middle. And to be within 15 yards of Giggs from the moment he started his run to the end of one of the so-called wonder goals. And for some people to have been there watching is fantastic. So imagine what it's like, the thrill to have been an active part of it. Almost as a referee, you wanted to applaud because it was a bit of brilliance, and you'd been there. I've got at the back of the book the list of every player that I've cautioned, i.e. booked or sent off in my career. In the early days were just unknown people. P. Hearn, former 3D, sent off for swearing. A. Craig from the Admiral Harvey pub sent off for a V sign to the linesman. Dunga, captain of Brazil, sent off. Sparta Prague, Fiorentina, 9 yellow cards. Yellow cards for Lasseau, Sherwood and Batty of Blackburn, Andy Cole, Nicky Butt, Gary Neville, and a red card for Roy Keane. So a typical entry for a game. So I suspect when I retire, the most difficult day will be the first day of the next season.